I'm going to explain the SVB collapse. Yesterday, Silicon Valley Bank, or SVB, collapsed. They were the 16th largest bank in the United States, and they had $220 billion in assets. They collapsed, wiped out thousands of startups overnight, and it also wiped out thousands of VC funds with billions of dollars overnight. So what does this mean? This means come Monday, hundreds of thousands of employees are going to find out that they have no jobs because their companies don't exist unless there's a government bank bailout. It is estimated that the collapse will wipe out 50% of the startups in America. That's going to have a ripple effect throughout the economy, not just in Silicon Valley, but across the US and the entire globe. The only silver lining in this is that it'll finally lead to the collapse of the overheated housing market in Silicon Valley. So what led to this? Simple: high interest rates. SVB made bad investment decisions. They bought mortgage securities paying 0%. Now with high interest rates, they have to pay out on deposits at a higher interest rate, and there's a shortfall. Compounding this, they lent money to startups at low interest rates, which in turn use the funds to pay high salaries, free lunches, dinners, massages, fat bonuses, which contributed to the sky-high home prices, which only people in these startups could buy. And many of these companies don't have a working product that customers pay for, so they don't have the money to pay back the loans that they borrowed. So although this looks like an economic problem, it actually has its roots in politics. In 2020, SVB had $60 billion in assets. By 2022, they had $300 billion in assets. That means the assets increased 5 times in 2 years. So where did all this money come from? It came from the Biden administration's Federal Reserve money printing machine, which printed trillions of dollars in free money, saying it's for the American public, but somehow it ends up in the accounts of rich corporations. It is estimated that 30% of the US dollars in circulation today was printed in the last 2 years. And all this has led to 50-year high inflation. The inflation in the US is 70 to 20%, not the 8% reported by the government. The government is removing components from the inflation index to make it seem less bad than it really is. You can feel it when you go to the grocery store. Eggs are up 300 to 400%, from $2.99 to as high as $12. Unemployment among young people is as high as 30%, not the 3% reported by the government. When President Trump left office, unemployment was 2% and gas was $1.57. Today, gas is $68 in California, as high as $10 in Europe. Only Russia has low gas prices at $2.50. So a bad chef makes bad food, but bad politicians destroy everybody's life. In fact, after Joe Biden took over from Trump, the interest rates on the debt rose $100 billion in the first year because of the free money printing. You hear it on the news: free money for Ukraine, free money for climate change. Seems like everybody seems to be getting free money except the people that need it. As the people in Palestine, Ohio, whose lives have been destroyed, dead animals all around them, sparking a health epidemic, yet they have received zero. $100 billion means free rent, solving the student loan problem, the veterans and homeless epidemic. If you count the $250 billion sent to Ukraine, it means free healthcare for Americans, free internet, free public transportation, free phones, and I could go on. So SVB made bad investments, funded bad politicians. Now they want to bail out. So the taxpayer is going to bail out billionaires who got billions in free money paid for by the taxpayer, which they spend on lavish, exotic lifestyles. A bailout would involve the FDIC, which is taxpayer funded. The FDIC has $100 billion, but they have to pay out $220 billion to SVB. So where will the $120 billion come from? The difference, taxpayers. So when you take the $220 billion needed to bail out SVB, the $100 billion for interest payments, and the $250 billion sent to Ukraine, which is the money laundering capital of the world, and a good chunk of that money is coming back to the very people sending it, which in turn leads to high inflation, which in turn leads to high interest rates, which in turn has led to the collapse of SVB, which you, the taxpayer, are going to bail out. And unless you, the taxpayer, bails out the billionaires on Monday, there's going to be contagion in the banking sector, which would make SVB look like small potatoes. And that's why there is Bitcoin.